Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. For decades, researchers they've dared to dream of a world where artificial intelligence could be more than just a glorified spreadsheet operator.
Right.
Or, a simple data organizer.
Right.
We've imagined AI as a true, insightful research assistant, a collaborator even, capable of diving into the nuanced, subjective world of qualitative data right alongside us.
It sounds a bit like science fiction, doesn't it? Thinking a machine could grasp human experience, those emotions, the subtle meanings.
Exactly. And that dream, which felt so distant for so long, it's here. It's squarely in our reality.
Yeah, and with the explosive rise of generative AI, especially these incredibly powerful and accessible tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT, the debate is definitely hotter than ever.
Can AI really do it? Can it effectively act as a research assistant in this intricate world of qualitative data analysis?
And then maybe more critically for you, the qualitative researcher who pours so much of your own intellect and empathy into your work, how can you actually harness this power practically?
Without compromising that essential human insight, right? That art that makes qualitative research so profound.
Absolutely. Many of you might be wondering, am I going to lose my touch? Or is this going to devalue my expertise? We're definitely going to tackle that head on today.
That's precisely our mission. This deep dive is your shortcut to understanding how to conduct qualitative research, specifically thematic analysis, enhanced and maybe even transformed with this cutting-edge AI technology. We're going to unpack a framework called Guided AI Thematic Analysis, GAITA for short, and a really powerful but surprisingly simple prompting technique called EICTR.
And our goal isn't just to explain what these are. We want to show you a practical, user-friendly way for non-technical users, which, let's be honest, is most of us, to truly collaborate with AI.
Turning that information overload, which we all feel sometimes, into genuinely insightful knowledge.
Exactly. This isn't about AI replacing you. It's about AI empowering you.
So by the end of this, you'll discover how AI can dramatically streamline some really complex qualitative tasks, stuff that takes ages.
Yeah, freeing you up to focus on that higher level interpretive work. But we'll also be really honest about where its current limitations still lie. Because they definitely exist.
And crucially, how you can maintain your essential role as the intellectual leader throughout the whole process, making sure the insights you generate are truly yours.
Okay, so maybe let's start by taking a quick look back. Because this idea of AI helping with qualitative research, it's not brand new. It's been a long road.
Right, back in 1984, which feels like another era entirely.
It really does.
Sociologist Gerson had proposed this hypothetical system, the Automatic Notebook for Social Research, ANSR.
ANSR, yeah. And this was audacious back then. Personal computers were clunky, slow. AI, as we think of it now, was just not a thing.
But Gerson envisioned AI going beyond just sorting files. He thought it could actively help with analysis, suggesting it could be a genuine research assistant if it had sociological knowledge.
It was a bold thought, a kind of whisper of a future that seemed incredibly distant then.
A future we're only just starting to really grab hold of now.
Indeed. And that vision, it really did lay the groundwork. Following Gerson, we started seeing the first wave of what we now call computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software, or HICI-DAYS.
Ah, the HICI-DAYS packages. Tools like NuSyst?
Yeah, the predecessor to NVivo, which many people know, and also Ethnograph, MaxQDA, HyperResearch, Atlas.ti. They started popping up in the 80s and 90s.
And initially, these were mostly for text, right? Helping researchers manage interview transcripts, field notes, like a digital filing cabinet.
Pretty much. They helped you organize, sort, maybe do some basic coding and retrieval.
And then they evolved over time.
Significantly. By the 2000s, tools like NVivo and Atlas.ti could handle not just text, but multimodal data. Audio, photos, video, even social media data, survey data.
Which was a game changer if you were dealing with hundreds of interviews instead of, say, 20.
Absolutely. It shifted the scale of what felt manageable. You could search, sort, tag much faster. But fundamentally, their main role was still data management.
Right, helping you store and find stuff, but not really doing the deep analysis for you.
Exactly. They were tools to help you do the analysis more efficiently, not to automate the interpretation itself.
And around the same time, there were these things called expert systems. What were they about?
Yeah, expert systems. These have been around since the late 60s, actually. The idea was to mimic human decision-making, often using these rigid production rules.
Like, if X, then Y.
Precisely. Very strict logic. If the transcript mentions family, then code as family influence. Very precise for specific tasks, but also incredibly inflexible.
Like trying to follow a recipe that can't adapt if you run out of an ingredient.
That's a great analogy. Qualris, released in 2002, was an example in the qualitative space. It claimed intelligent computational strategies, but it was still quite rigid. It couldn't really handle the ambiguity and complexity of qualitative data well.
So if these early systems were around, and Gerson had this vision,
Yeah.
why didn't they take off as true AI assistants back then? What held them back?
Several big hurdles. First, the cost. These systems were incredibly expensive, especially for individual researchers or smaller teams.
And the computers themselves weren't powerful enough.
Exactly. Limited processing power. You couldn't just feed them mountains of data. And crucially, these early systems couldn't learn from vast, unstructured data sets in a flexible way. They couldn't really engage in a meaningful dialogue with their researcher.
So they managed data, helped organize, but the core interpretive work, that stayed firmly human.
By necessity, yeah. The technology just wasn't there yet.
Okay, fast forward to the last couple of decades. Machine learning, ML, starts becoming a big deal. How did that change things for qualitative analysis? Did ML bridge that gap?
Well, ML features definitely started finding their way into some KQD's tools. Think Discover Text, QDA Miner, Leximancer.
And what could they do specifically?
They focus mainly on things like automatic coding suggestions, maybe generating concepts, clustering text data based on patterns.
Okay.
Discover Text, for instance, was designed to help classify text, especially messy stuff like Twitter data. It used an iterative process. The machine suggested categories, the human refined them back and forth.
Kind of a collaboration then.
A basic form of it, yes. And Leximancer automatically generated concepts based on word co-occurrence.
Meaning words that often appeared together.
Right. If community, support, and neighbor often showed up near each other in your interviews, Leximancer would flag that as a potential concept.
So helpful for finding patterns, automating some tedious tasks, saving time, but still not quite understanding the meaning, maybe.
Exactly. That was a critical gap. These ML tools were often limited by their algorithms. They tended to decontextualize words, focusing on how often they appeared rather than their deeper meaning or the nuance.
Like it could tell you stress appears often, but not whether it's job stress, financial stress, or stress fractures.
Precisely. That human understanding of context, shared meanings, emotional subtext that was often lost. And importantly for many researchers, these tools could still be quite complex, not always user-friendly if you weren't tech-savvy. They often felt a bit like a black box.
Which brings us to today and the real paradigm shift. Generative AI. What fundamentally changed with the Gen AI that just blew the doors open for qualitative analysis?
It's a combination of things, really. Gen AI leverages huge advancements in big data, natural language processing, NLP, neural networks, computer vision, deep learning, all coming together.
Allowing it to process massive amounts of data.
Massive amounts of unstructured data, which is key for us. Interview transcripts, open-ended surveys, field notes, diaries, all that rich, messy, human stuff that older systems struggled with. Gen AI can process it incredibly fast.
And the interaction. That's the other huge piece, right? The human-like conversation.
Absolutely. That's the game changer for accessibility. Models like GPT are trained on such vast amounts of text and code, they've learned the patterns of human language incredibly well.
So you can just talk to them.
You can talk to them in plain English or other languages. You don't need to be a programmer. This dialogue capability makes them so much more intuitive and usable for everyone.
Okay, so if a researcher wants to start using Gen AI in their qualitative work right now, what are the practical options? What do those scenarios look like?
Broadly, there are three main ways this is happening. First, we're seeing integration into existing KeyDs.
So the tools many people already use, like MaxQDA, Atlas.ai, and Vivo.
Exactly. They're now adding Gen AI functions. They can suggest codes, help draft themes, summarize sections, even let you chat with your data right inside the software you already know.
The benefits there seem obvious. Familiarity, maybe better data security within that system.
Right. Seamless integration, uses features, often have company-assured data security, everything in one place. It's a comfortable way in for many.
Okay, what's the second scenario?
The second is new. Dedicated qualitative AI software, sometimes called Qual AI. Tools like CANS, Kaloop, QInsight, these are built from the ground up for AI-powered qualitative analysis.
What can they do? More advanced stuff?
Often, yes. They might handle multimodal data, better analyzing audio or video directly. They often have sophisticated chatting with data features, summary tools, maybe even help build analytical matrices.
But the downsides, learning a new system and cost.
Definitely. There's a learning curve, and they can be pricey. You mentioned Kaloop earlier. Yeah, an independent plan could be around $200 plus VEC a month, maybe with limits on projects or hours. That's a serious investment.
Yeah, prohibitive for many. Which leads us to the third option, and what we're focusing on today, the AI chatbots.
Yes, the tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Microsoft's Copilot, Anthropic's Claude, their big draw is accessibility and cost-effectiveness.
Most have free versions.
Most do, yeah, for basic use. And the paid subscriptions for advanced features like better data security or handling larger inputs are usually much more affordable, maybe around $22 a month, much more flexible.
So you can experiment without a huge commitment. What can these chatbots actually do in qualitative analysis right now? What are the practical uses?
Well, people are applying them to different approaches: context analysis, discourse analysis, grounded theory. But thematic analysis is really the most explored area so far.
Why thematic analysis?
Probably because it's often quite flexible and iterative, which fits well with how you might interact with an AI assistant. These tools can summarize text very quickly, they can suggest initial codes for data segments, and they can even generate preliminary themes based on the data you feed them.
That sounds incredibly powerful, almost like magic.
Yeah.
But here's the so what question. If Gen AI can do these things, summarize, suggest codes, does it always lead to meaningful qualitative analysis?
That's the crucial point. And often the answer right now is not automatically. Just getting AI to summarize or list potential codes doesn't guarantee deep insight.
So how do we make sure AI becomes a true assistant, a partner in generating real understanding and not just, I don't know, a fancy summarizer? Or worse, a black box spitting out shallow answers?
This is where we need to address some key gaps in how AI is often being applied or studied right now.
Okay, what are those gaps?
First, a lot of the experiments you see published use older thematic analysis approaches, like the original Braun and Clark framework from 2006, which is foundational, of course, but maybe doesn't fully capture the more reflexive, iterative nature emphasized in their later work or in other flexible approaches.
Like template analysis.
Exactly. King and colleagues' template analysis from 2018 is a great example. It tries to balance that big Q reflexive tradition with the small q focus on coding reliability. It's a more adaptable framework that seems well-suited for this kind of AI collaboration.
It's not just the type of analysis, but how much of the process people are looking at.
Right. Many studies focus on just one isolated phase, like can AI generate initial codes, or can it jump straight to themes? The danger there is massive oversimplification.
Just throwing all the data in and asking for themes.
Yeah, that often leads to what Morgan called topic summaries, not real themes with deep contextualized meaning. You lose those crucial patterns of shared meanings. It's like getting a list of ingredients instead of tasting the finished dish.
And the interaction piece, how humans and AI actually work together.
That's another big gap. A lot of research compares human output versus AI output. Can AI do what a human does? But that's less interesting, I think, than asking, how can humans and AI collaborate to produce something better?
Right. It doesn't matter if AI can generate similar themes if researchers aren't actually using those outputs to advance their own thinking.
Precisely. The researcher has to stay in charge, maintain full agency, be the intellectual leader. You're the instrument, not the AI.
Which brings us to user-friendliness. If it's too technical, most qualitative researchers just won't use it.
Absolutely. Many current AI applications still require technical skills using APIs, maybe even coding. We need simple, systematic, accessible frameworks for non-technical users.
Okay, so these are the challenges. Outdated methods sometimes used, incomplete workflows, lack of focus on real collaboration, and the technical barriers. How do we overcome these? This is where GAIDA and ACR come in.
That's exactly the idea. The Guided AI Thematic Analysis, or GAITA framework, is designed as a practical adaptation of template analysis. And it's paired with the HDORA prompting framework to make interacting with the AI clear and effective.
And the study that developed this used GPT-4.
Yes, GPT-4 was used as the research assistant, but crucially with the human researcher providing continuous supervision, reflexive notes, critical judgment, and making adjustments all the way through.
So guidance is key.
It's fundamental. It's about AI empowering the researcher, not replacing them.
Before we walk through JI step by step, we absolutely have to talk about ethics. Bringing AI into qualitative research, especially with personal data, that raises some big questions.
Huge questions, and they need careful consideration up front. The main worries are around things like data ownership, who owns the insights after an AI processes your data, privacy, how secure is participant data, and transparency, especially when using commercial AI tools.
So what are the practical steps researchers need to take?
Number 1, anonymize your data before you upload anything to an AI. Strip out names, locations, any identifying details.
Crucial.
Number 2, get explicit participant consent specifically for AI use. People need to know how their data might be handled. And number 3, include your AI usage plan in your ethics application to your IRB. Be upfront about it. Kaufman did this successfully, detailing the impacts and consent process. It can be done.
And for this study that developed JIDA, how do they navigate this, especially since AI guidelines were still new back then?
That study started in early 2023, and yeah, institutional guidelines were still evolving rapidly. So they made a pragmatic choice to avoid immediate ethical hurdles with new participant data.
What did they do?
They used a publicly available, already anonymized data set. The environmental change in Down East interviews from Lou Mavero. These were short interviews from 2008-2009 about how coastal communities perceived environmental change. They focused specifically on the research question. How do these people connect to Down East? Using about 6,300 words from 11 interviews. This let them focus purely on the methodology of AI integration for this study without getting tangled in complex consent issues for this specific project.
Smart move to focus on the how-to. Okay, ethics covered. Let's get into the GITA 4-step procedure. This is the practical roadmap. But maybe first, can we quickly clarify those key terms again? Code, cluster, theme. What's the difference in simple terms?
Good idea. Think of it like building layers of understanding. A code is like a label, a sticky note on a specific bit of data. Short, descriptive. Appreciation for nature, very close to the text.
Got it.
Then you group related sticky notes. A cluster is a broader category. So codes like appreciation for nature, pollution concerns, tranquility outdoors might cluster under environmental connection. It's a step up in abstraction.
Okay, codes feed into clusters.
Right. And finally, a theme is the overarching story or insight that emerges from those clusters, directly answering your research question. It's interpretive. So from environmental connection, a theme might be identity tied to environmental stewardship. It's the deep meaning, the pattern.
Data code dashes codus cluster dash a theme.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So JIDA simplifies template analysis into 4 steps, but the absolute key message is
You, the researcher, are the leader. Always. You define inputs, evaluate outputs, demand revisions, document everything. The AI is your assistant, period.
and guiding that assistant effectively relies on the AICTR framework for prompting.
Yes. AICTR is just a simple acronym to help you write really clear prompts. It stands for AICT, actor. Assign the AI a role. You are a qualitative research assistant. Sets the context.
Okay.
See context. Give background info. Define terms. A code is defined as, Down East refers to this specific coastal region.
Got it. Teach the AI.
T-task. State clearly what the AI should do or avoid. Summarize this. Identify codes. Avoid overlapping codes. Explain your reasoning.
Be specific.
Outputs. Describe the format you want. A table with 3 columns. Code, description, quotation, or 3 key bullet points.
So it gives you usable results.
And finally, R reference. Point to the specific data. Hashtag tag here is the transcript, or hashtag use this list of codes. Gives the AI its material. Using AICTR just sets your AI assistant up for success.
Makes total sense. Like giving clear instructions to a human assistant. Okay, let's dive into step 1, data familiarization. Goal here is just getting to know your data.
Exactly. Becoming intimately familiar with it, forming that initial mental map. Traditionally, this means lots of reading, rereading, listening, note-taking. It's foundational but time-consuming.
How time-consuming?
Well, in the GIDA study, the researcher timed it.
No.
Manually reading a 2,000-word transcript took about 11 minutes, then another 5-6 minutes to summarize it properly, just for one.
Multiply that by many interviews.
But yeah.
Yeah, that adds up fast. So how does AI help here? What did they do with GPT-4?
The speed is incredible. First, individual summaries. They gave GPT-4 one 2,000-word transcript, Barbara's interview. Prompt 1.1. Basically summarize this interview. GPT-4 did it in 30 seconds. 419 words.
Wow.
Then, prompt 1.2. Highlight the key ideas in 3 bullet points. 9 seconds. And it even identified relevant subheadings, showed real understanding.
30 seconds and 9 seconds versus nearly 20 minutes manually. That's huge. What about summarizing the whole data set? All 11 interviews, 20,000 words?
Yeah, this is where it gets really impressive. They uploaded a single file with all the interviews. Prompt 1.3 used AICTR. Provide a 400-word summary of key ideas from all interviews in the uploaded file. GPT-4 generated a comprehensive overview in just 10 seconds.
10 seconds for 20,000 words.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
And it identified key emergent themes like deep community roots, environmental connection, economic shifts, gave that immediate high-level landscape.
The practicality is undeniable. Huge time saver for just immersing yourself initially, getting the lay of the land.
Absolutely. It accelerates that familiarization phase dramatically.
Okay, on to step 2. Preliminary coding. Generating those initial labels, applying them, refining them. This is where the human-AI dance really starts.
It really does. You start by giving the AI your research question. How do these people connect to Down East? And, crucially, use something external like Google Sheets to track the AI's output.
Right, because the chatbot isn't a database.
Exactly. You need that organized record. For the first transcript, Barbara's, they used a detailed Ector prompt, prompt 2.1.
What did it ask?
It said, "You're a qualitative research assistant. Help me identify codes. Codes are labels that assign definition. Final output is a table. Code, description, quotation, here is the transcript. Very clear role, definition, task, output, reference."
So how did GPT-4 do on its first try? Perfect.
Pretty good. It generated 5 initial codes that matched the data well, but the labels needed work. It might say connection is non-local, where the human researcher realizes feeling local is much better, more nuanced.
So human judgment is still key for the labels.
Absolutely. The researcher reviewed, refined the labels, and even added a key code the AI missed initially, natural beauty, which was prominent in the interview. The AI found elements, the human provided the interpretive lens. They ended up with 6 refined codes for that first transcript.
Okay, AI gets you started, human refines.
Yeah.
What about coding the rest of the interviews, the bulk of the work?
This is where they hit a major AI limitation, the context window.
The AI's short-term memory.
Exactly. They first tried to ask GPT-4 to code all 10 remaining interviews, over 20,000 words, at once. The output was superficial, incomplete. The AI just couldn't hold all that information effectively. It started forgetting or giving shallow responses.
Ah, so you can't just dump everything in and expect perfect results? That's critical to know. What's the workaround?
Break it down. Process transcripts one by one, sequentially. This keeps the AI focused and allows for researcher supervision.
How did they prompt that?
First, prompt 2.2. Please study the following list of initial codes. We will use this list. In the next question, I will ask you to apply this list. #tag, here's the list. Basically making sure the AI uses the human-validated code list. Then, for each new transcript, prompt 2.3. Now, apply the revised coding framework to the following interview. #the final output must be a table. #tag, when doing so, you should. 1. Maintain code order. 2. Edited new codes. Mark with. 3. Edit descriptions. 4. Add quotes. #tag, here is the interview with Charles. Very prescriptive.
Super detailed instructions. Did that work better?
Much better. GPT-4 applied the framework, and importantly, it even added a new code, engagement with local industry, when relevant information came up in Charles's interview that didn't fit.
So it could identify novelty but needed the structure.
Right. And the researcher's role was constant. Verify accuracy after each transcript, make sure codes were consistent, prompt the AI, is there any new information for new codes? After 5 transcripts, they had a refined list of 10 codes. It was an iterative dance.
So AI speeds up the grunt work of coding, but human oversight is vital for nuance, consistency, making sure labels make sense, checking for missed ideas. You guide the AI.
Precisely. You're the intellectual driver.
Okay. Step 3, template formation and refinement, moving from codes to bigger categories or clusters.
Yes, condensing the data by grouping related codes, and then really refining that overall analytical template, making it robust.
How do you prompt the AI to start clustering?
Prompt 3.1 used Ector again. From the above refined list of codes, please group codes into clusters in response to the question. # for each cluster, retain the specific codes and quotations. #tag output is a table. Cluster, codes, description, quotation. Quote, the interviewee names. Linking quotes is key for the audit trail.
Did the AI get the grouping right?
Mostly. It produced 4 initial clusters, linked codes and quotes. But, and this is a pattern, it omitted one important code, engagement with local industry.
So human oversight needed again for completeness.
Yep. The researcher intervened, guided the AI to restore the code, create a 5th cluster, and refine the cluster names for clarity. Added family to connection to place, for instance, to make it richer. That led to the initial template.
AI groups. Human ensures logic and meaning. What about developing subcodes within those codes? Getting really granular.
This is where the human intellect really had to work hard. The task, using prompt 3.2, was basically develop subcodes for each code based on these quotations. Add quotes to subcodes, create new subcodes as needed. Output is table, cluster code, subcodes description, quotes, repeated for each code's batch of quotes.
Sounds complex. Did the AI handle the nuances well?
Not always. This was where it often produced overlapping subcodes despite instructions, like having fishing as livelihood and economic activity from fishing as separate things.
When they're essentially the same idea.
Exactly. This required significant human judgment. The study mentions 10 rounds of iterative recoding and recategorizing.
10 rounds. Wow. What was happening there?
It was a real back and forth. The researcher guiding the AI, collapsing redundant subcodes, refining definitions, rearranging things until the structure felt logically sound and meaningful. The AI generated possibilities. The human provided the critical evaluation and coherence. It wasn't easy, but it led to a robust final template.
So AI helps organize, but the human is absolutely essential for that deep logical structure and distinguishing the fine-grained meanings.
That makes sense.
Okay, final step, step 4, theme development, moving to the big picture insights.
Right, the interpretive heart of it all. Generating meaningful themes that cut across the clusters and codes, telling that overarching story that answers your research question.
How do you start? Do you need to define theme for the AI?
Definitely. As we saw, AI defaults to summaries, so they gave it King's definition. A theme is a recurrent and distinctive feature relevant to the research question. You have to guide it towards interpretation.
And the prompt for generating themes.
Prompt 4.1. From the table of clusters, generate themes in response to the question. Hashtag theme is defined as King's definition. Each theme should link cluster, S, with the context of down east. Themes must be relatively distinct. Hashtag output is table. Theme, clusters codes used, description, quotation, quote, names. Again, very specific.
How was the AI's first attempt at themes, even with that detail?
It generated 6 themes, like generational anchoring or environmental connection, but they weren't much different from the clusters. They still felt like topic summaries, lacking that deep contextual meaning.
So it recognized patterns, but didn't make the interpretive leap.
Exactly. It shows the AI isn't inherently trained in the qualitative understanding of theme. It knows the word, but not the specific research meaning without guidance.
Human intervention needed again to push for deeper meaning. How?
The researcher used prompt 4.2 to guide the AI to revise themes by extending the names to connect them explicitly to the context down east and the research question.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A topic like generational anchoring became the theme connection through generational and historical continuity. See how it adds the interpretive layer. Environmental connection became connection through environmental reverence and stewardship.
Adding connection through makes it answer the how of the research question. That's a key difference.
It really is. It turns a label into an interpretive statement. The human provides that interpretive frame.
And the overarching theme, the single big idea.
Prompt 4.3. From the themes above, produce an overarching theme. GPT-4 suggested rootedness and reverence in down east. Pretty good capture.
And the researcher refined it slightly.
Just slightly, to connection through rootedness and reverence in down east, making that link to the research question crystal clear.
So AI helps find patterns, generate initial ideas, but the human shapes them into truly interpretive, meaningful themes. G-Editor really provides that practical structure for doing it.
Absolutely. It shows how to leverage the tool while keeping the human firmly in control of the interpretation.
Okay, let's zoom out now. Beyond the steps, what are the broader implications? What are GenAI's biggest potentials here?
The potentials are significant. First, as we saw, efficiency. Streamlining coding, data display, turning messy text into organized tables or summaries almost instantly. This frees up so much researcher time.
Time that can be spent on deeper thinking.
Exactly. Second, it aids pattern recognition. With guidance, it can help spot connections across data layers, codes, clusters, themes that might not be immediately obvious.
Potentially leading to better interpretation.
Potentially, yes. While AI struggles with interpretation on its own, the generative process shows that with structured, iterative guidance, it can help construct more contextual, interpretive themes, moving beyond just summaries. It amplifies your interpretive capacity.
Okay, potentials noted. But we also need to be real about the limitations and how to deal with them. What are the main ones researchers need to watch out for?
First, those processing constraints. The context window limit we talked about. Even GPT-4 had its limits. Feed it too much at once, and it can oversimplify, forget things, or even hallucinate, make stuff up.
And the solution is chunking the data.
Yes, divide datasets into smaller, manageable pieces for sequential processing. Supervise closely. And keep an eye on newer models. Context windows are getting much bigger, like Gemini 1.5 Pro's 2 million tokens. But the principle of working within the limits remains key.
What else? Consistency.
Yeah, variable and inconsistent outputs. Getting the exact format you want or avoiding slightly different phrasing for the same idea can take multiple tries.
Solution there is just persistence and better prompting.
Pretty much. Persistence, clear actor prompts, and iterative refinement. If the output isn't right, tweak your prompt.
And the third limitation, workflow.
Working across multiple platforms. Using chatbots often means juggling the chat interface, your Word doc, your Excel sheet. It's not as integrated as dedicated QDAS.
Any solution for that?
Consolidating your analysis results in a single spreadsheet, like Google Sheets, as Jida did, is a good practical workaround. And chatbots are getting better with folders and file handling, but it's still something to be aware of.
Beyond these practical bits, there's the big methodological question. How do we ensure rigor and trustworthiness when using AI? It's not human.
Paramount question, and it stems from the fact that Gen AI isn't trained in QDA principles. It doesn't understand theme like we do unless we teach it.
So we need to train it, like onboarding an assistant.
That's the perfect analogy. Use custom instructions in the AI settings. Set rules like do not make up data, only use data from transcripts, maintain objectivity. For paid versions, you can even upload your methodology guidelines to its knowledge base.
Effectively giving it project-specific training.
Exactly. And the guided framework itself promotes rigor. It's systematic, step-by-step, emphasizing the researcher's role in meaning-making. It creates that crucial audit trail.
So you can track how conclusions were reached.
Right. It encourages monitoring, reflection, learning from the interaction. This builds trustworthiness.
And it all comes back to human agency, keeping the researcher in charge.
Absolutely. Jada champions the researcher leading, using AI as an assistant, an amplifier, not an autonomous decision maker. You remain the instrument of study, responsible for the knowledge produced, claiming it through your intellect, positionality, and reflexivity.
Okay, as we wrap up, remember that idea of just dumping my text into a program and seeing what comes out. With tools like ChatGPT, that's actually possible now. The temptation is real.
And it's risky. Without careful guidance, like Jada provides, you can easily misuse Gen AI. Outputs can include hallucinations, biases from the training data. It's understandable why seasoned qualitative researchers have hesitations.
Because qualitative analysis feels like an art, right? Driven by human judgment, reflexivity, creativity, experience, that unique human touch.
And that's still true. You can just dump data into ChatGPT and ask for themes, but you risk oversimplifying, getting shallow results, and maybe more importantly, you risk losing your identity as the researcher, your unique contribution.
That warning from decades ago about the untutored use of analysis programs producing banal analysis, it still applies. Maybe even more so.
I think it's incredibly relevant today with Gen AI's power and ease of use. The crucial takeaway is that you, the researcher, must remain grounded in your methodology and the art of your craft.
Don't let the tool dictate the analysis or flatten the understanding of human experience.
Exactly. Guide the AI with your reflexivity, your judgment, your expertise, your unique human capacity for understanding. What truly matters is that social construction of knowledge between you and your participants. AI is just a tool, albeit a powerful one, in your toolbox.
A tool to amplify your craft, not replace it. That's a powerful thought to leave you with. The true power of AI in qualitative research isn't automation, but amplification of human insight. How will you leverage these tools to deepen your understanding, to construct knowledge uniquely through that dynamic, human-led interaction between your intellect and the rich voices of your participants? Something to ponder as you start your next research adventure.